I'm sure you've had it, an aha moment. We all have it, and sometimes it could be the tiniest of events that change our whole mindset on life and on things. I'll give you a story of an aha moment that I got, but it was actually from a 6-year-old. Children writing their personal stories was a daily fare in my classroom when I was an infant teacher. Well, it actually didn't have to be a story. Quite frankly, my little 6-year-olds could write and draw whatever they wanted. Just write. Have a blast. Just put your thoughts down on paper. Mess and all. The babies took to it like duck to water. No pressure. As they wrote, I would rove, observe, and offer just a few select suggestions here and there. A student who particularly loved writing stories was Sean. This 6-year-old boy would write all day long if I let him. Pages and pages of stories piled up with wonderful drawings in between. Now his pictures I understood easily, but his words, let's just say through my eyes, it was just gibberish. Of course I didn't let him know that. Sean never knew how lost I was. I mean, he knew that what he was saying, he knew what he was saying. So up to that point, the fault of not understanding would have all been mine. Daily, Sean would excitedly read his stories to me and I would just say, "Great idea, Sean. Love your story. Fantastic." I mean, as I said before, to me, his words on the paper were gibberish, so I didn't even know how to give him any sort of correction. And after I gave him his praise, because his storylines were really exciting, he would walk off to draw his pictures while smiling with the greatest feeling of accomplishment. Then one fateful day, a magical experience happened. As Sean was reading his newly created story for me, I began to recognize his words. His invented spelling began to make sense to me. Now, by invented spelling, what I mean is the child understands the letters of the alphabet. He's beginning to learn to read, but when it comes to spelling, he's not quite there yet. So what he does is come up with his own solution of what that word should be spelled like. And of course, as they grow in their phonics and their knowledge of sight words and their exploration of words, dots begin to connect and they begin to create a more formalized form of spelling. So that's just a side note about invented spelling. But nonetheless, his invented spelling began to make sense to me. Well, at least small portions of it. He read his fanciful tale to me, and lo and behold, some phrases jumped out at me. I eagerly dived in and read out the short groups of words that I recognized. Then he would continue reading while I listened before chiming in again for the portions that made sense to me. Then he would resume, and that was how the sharing of his reading or his story proceeded until he reached the end of his written adventure, him reading most of it and me chiming in with the words I could read, and we team read, so to speak, his story. Finally, his spelling and phonics were becoming standardized. Finally, he was moving away from gibberish words to invented spelling to some formalized spelling. Finally, at last, phew! I looked at him with great pride and joy, the pride that only a teacher might feel when she commends herself for reaching the mind of a child as only she can, a little pat on the back I gave myself. I proudly turned to Sean and exclaimed, "Sean, you have finally become a writer." I was eager, I was happy, I gave him praise. Suddenly his face dropped. This wasn't the reaction I expected. What's wrong with this child? I had just given him a compliment. I had just praised him. Why the long face? He looked at me, feeling quite confused. He turned to me and spoke with a flat, expressionless voice. He turned to me and said a few small words. Words so simple, yet so profound. Miss, I was always a writer. He turned and went to his seat to create a drawing for his picture. I sat in silence. I had just experienced an aha moment from a 6-year-old. If you liked what you just heard, please give us a thumbs up below. Share with others, and remember to subscribe so you'll never miss out on more information from the Hopalong and Grow podcast.